Thanks so much for tuning in to 107.7 The Truth. Hey, this is Brian and my special guest, I guess, for now anyway, for the last time, Nancy.
Well, I'll stay around until 1 o'clock. Maybe this
Okay.
won't be my last time, but I know. Thank you. I haven't been able to listen much this week, but I know you've been letting listeners know that my dad passed away unexpectedly on Tuesday, and today was supposed to be my last day at the Truth anyway. So, we were talking all month when I kind of picked today to be my last day of like finishing strong, finishing well. And I know I haven't done that on the air, but I know our listeners understand. And I really have felt the presence of the Lord and your prayers. And I've heard from so many of our listeners as you've so kindly and compassionately let people know why I haven't been on the air this week. So thank you.
Yeah, well, everybody is understanding, of course. It's hard enough to say goodbye, but especially
under the circumstances.
Right. It's a difficult time.
Yeah, good. You and I are terrible at goodbyes anyway.
Yeah, we're not really.
I don't think it's anybody's favorite. It's nobody's favorite.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good thing.
It is.
If you really were wanting to say goodbye.
Yeah,
to
that's
people
true.
all the time.
For the people that we like saying goodbye to, that's probably not a good thing.
Right. Well, thank you for coming in, and I know that people will be grateful to hear your voice and to hear that even in grief you're okay. Your husband Kim's with us and as moral support, and I thought as we go through this hour together playing some of your favorite songs, you had kind of a goodbye scripture that you wanted to share.
Oh, well, yeah, not so much about my dad, but it's
I mean, yeah, for the truth.
Yeah, for saying goodbye to the truth, for sure. Well, maybe a month ago, you and I were talking about when would be my last day, and I think I've shared on the air that really the reason that I'm leaving now is because I have a new full-time job, which is taking care of my new grandson, which you finally got to meet for the first time a little while ago.
Morning,
yeah, we were on nanny duty for a little while this morning. But anyway, that's my new full-time job, and I ain't getting any younger. And I did find it difficult to have that full-time job and to keep up with this full-time job.
Right.
So something had to give, and unfortunately, I've talked about this on the air, but that's really the reason I'm leaving. And I picked just kind of arbitrarily, like, well, when am I going to be able to wrap things up well? And we had picked today to be my last day. And there was something about that felt kind of fitting. Today's Valentine's Day, by the way. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And anyway, there was just something in my spirit that just felt like, yeah, that's right. That feels good. That feels right. And if we're going too long, I'm losing track of time. So you let me know if we need to take a time out, and I can finish. We can listen to some music, and then I can finish part 2 of this. But for Valentine's Day being a fitting day for me to say goodbye, I really didn't know why I felt like that until I remembered this verse that is very important to me, and really the reason why I started working at the Truth. It's Song of Solomon 2:14, and that's, of course, the date today is 2:14. In fact, besides Song of Solomon 2:14 in my Bible, I have written Valentine's Day. But I feel like I've shared this story on the Truth throughout the years, but at the time, 13 years ago, I guess, coming up on 13 years ago, a young man at our church that we were in all of us were in community, my husband and you and I and Barbara and Ruthie, we're all in community with and part of a prayer team with. A young man handed me this verse, Song of Solomon 2:14, and there was nothing in me that thought, well, this is weird. This is inappropriate. What is this young man, like I was an old lady and he was a young man with, lots of promise ahead of him. I felt like he was so mature in the Lord that if he had heard from God that God wanted me to have this verse, then I totally received that appropriately. Like, if he's heard from the Lord, this is real.
Right.
I mean, we have certain people in our lives that we feel like that about. And at the time, he had never done this like before, but he specifically came up to me and said, Miss Nancy, I think he emailed me, Miss Nancy, I feel like the Lord wants you to know, wants you to know something about Song of Solomon 2:14. Well, I didn't really even know what it was, so I had to look it up. Mm-hmm. And this is what it says. It says, "O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the secret place of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely." And so for a long time, I just sat with that, like, Lord, what does that mean? And I was in counseling at the time, and I think I was discussing, how my mind does. I mean, my husband certainly does. Like, I get something in there, and like, yes, my mind's not going to rest till I get this thing figured out, kind of thing, And so I would just mull it over, and I would put it before the Lord, and at the time, I was trying to do a lot of writing, so I was like, is that what it means? Because, you talk about the writer's voice, and I was like, what is it, Lord? What is it, Lord? Well, kind of separately, you had talked to me about working here at the radio station, and I totally laughed it off, like, as if I have no experience. I wouldn't even know how to begin to do that. That is not on my radar, so honestly, I think I dismissed you about that, like, okay, whatever, but I'll take it I'll pray about that, Brian. And so separately from you talking to me about, hey, what I consider working at the radio station, I'm trying to figure out, what does it mean about, Lord, what does it mean? You want to hear my voice? What does that mean? What does that mean? And then, it was like the Lord, I guess I'm just really thick-skulled and dense a lot of times. So maybe, I'm smart in certain areas, but I'm pretty dull in other areas. And it was like, once I figured it out, I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, this could not have been more clear. Because when I put it together, the young man who gave me this verse, do you remember who this man was? What was his name?
DJ.
His name was DJ.
Yeah.
And it was like, and the whole time I'm like, why did this message come from DJ, Lord? Like, he's not someone that, I saw on a regular basis. And yes, we did this prayer ministry together, but it was just kind of like out of the blue. He came to me about this.
Right.
And so that was always a question. I'm like, Lord, why DJ? Why DJ? DJ. And then at the same time, I'm trying to figure out, what does it mean, Lord, that you want to hear my voice? And I don't know, like one day it was just like, I felt like the Lord was like, Nancy, could this not be more obvious for you that you're supposed to be a DJ, and that's how I want to hear your voice? And it's been really special that over the years people talk about, everybody hates to hear the sound of their own voice, even you and I.
Sure.
But so many people will talk about how sweet my voice is. Mm-hmm. And I've never thought that about myself. And that's what it says in this verse. I want to hear your voice, for your voice is sweet. And anyway, that verse, Solomon 2:14, was what got me to work here. And I feel like it's the verse that, because it's a Valentine's Day verse that I'm going out on, you know?
Well, it's a really sweet story.
It is a sweet story.
There's so much backstory that you and Kim and your family have been involved in for the truth. And I know this isn't the hour to talk about that, but we appreciate the blessings. And I've got a few of your favorite songs.
Thank you. That's
hour.
been really sweet these last couple of weeks. My husband has loved hearing my favorites because we share some of the same favorites. Not all of them, but some of them we share, and he's enjoyed listening. And my daughter and her husband were driving along last night and enjoyed hearing you talk about my dad and her grandfather, and then hearing some of my favorite music. That really meant a lot to them. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's do it again.
Yep.
Here's Mercy Me, I Can Only Imagine, on the Truth. That was Nicole Nordeman and Legacy on 107.7 The Truth. We are sharing some of Nancy's favorites this hour, and fortunately, we get to share them with Nancy.
Yay. Well, we had landed on this date being my last day, I don't know, a month or so ago.
Right.
And yeah, I've been out this week. I know Brian has shared, but just in case someone didn't hear, my dad passed away unexpectedly on Tuesday. Excuse me. But
okay.
so this week didn't go like we thought it was going to go, but you've still played my favorites, and I've heard them, and my family's heard them, and I know you've shared the news about my dad, who, by the way, sounds like lots of nepotism. But he did found this radio station, and it's part of one of the many reasons why I have loved and will continue to love the Truth Radio. But it is my last day on the air, but it's kind of been a weird week. It's been a weird week.
It has. But you know what? I hope that you know that people who normally listen during your time, they've begun to understand why they're not hearing you. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they've been praying for you, and we've had
I know they
calls and
have.
texts
Yes,
and-
my family and I totally feel supported. So we know that's people praying for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, legacy is a big word.
It is. I mean, thinking about my dad, the legacy he left. And it's really interesting, Brian. I don't know if you felt like this about some of my favorites, but, of course, the Lord knew what this week was going to hold, but we didn't. And especially when, several weeks ago, I was just like, sent you this long list of like, here's some of my favorite songs. And you've been, like I said, thank you. So sweet and generous, because I know some of these are old songs and they're playing more often than they would have normally. And some people might be tiring of them, but I find that I'm hearing them at the right, at the right time, and they trigger a sweet memory. But these songs, a lot of these songs I'm finding in light of my dad's passing, I can understand now a little bit why I wanted them to
Why
play.
you were selecting them,
Yeah. And that song Legacy, I can remember, I mean, my children were little. So this is 20 plus years ago. That's how old that song is. That ages me. I can remember, it was back when I was a runner. So whenever that was, I can remember running and just, I would be just like jogging and crying out as I guess I was listening to Nicole Nordeman on a CD Walkman at the time, and just, I don't know, something in that song, just like that became the prayer of my heart. Like with my children being young, like, Lord, of all the things I could pass down to them, would it be ultimately be a legacy? Did I point to you, Lord, enough to make a mark on things?
Yeah.
And my husband and I were just sharing with you, with the family being home for services and all that, like starting to see that happen in the lives of our children is just, we're just so grateful. And what a blessing, a blessing. And that my dad passed that to his children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. And because he lived a full life right up until the end, got to see that come to fruition in our lives. And, and I recognize in saying that a lot of people don't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
But it was just that song, like, it's always been a favorite, but especially in light of my dad's passing, I, of course, have been more reflective, and yes, my dad pointed enough to make a mark on things. And I think Kim and I are starting to realize, did we do it perfectly? No. And are we still messing up? Yes. But we just always tried to point to the Lord, point to the Lord, and just to see it coming to fruition in the lives of our children is just spectacular.
Yes.
I just want to say to parents, don't give up.
That's right.
And we still, our children are not perfect. Their lives are not perfect. And so we still got a lot of unanswered prayers out there. And, as if you're a parent, you're going to be on your knees for your children the rest of your life, as my dad was. Yeah. But it is just when you start to see glimpses of that, it's just really precious.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And the same that I see in y'all, as you've talked about your kids, I saw in your dad as he looked at y'all and his grandkids.
Yeah, he was so proud.
Even great grands. So,
yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to play some more of your favorites.
Thank you.
Stick around.
Enjoying it.
This is Nancy's last hour with us, so we're going to milk it for all it's worth, or I am. And we've got Morgan Harper Nichols coming up and some Third Day on The Truth. Old school, Third Day. I've always loved you. One of Nancy's favorites.
Yeah, a lot of my favorites are old school.
That one predates The Truth.
Yeah, some of these songs do. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it's still a good one.
No, it's a great one. It's a great one.
It'll always be a great one. Yeah, I feel like I wish I could hashtag or tag. I don't know what's the right lingo in social media. Tag Mac Powell and the old Third Day band members, because they're the reason that Third Day and maybe Jars of Clay, although Jars of Clay at the time had a couple of songs I liked, but when I heard Third Day, and it was, I had our assistant pastor or priest at the time when we were at Trinity all those years ago. I don't know what I went to him about, but he was like, "You need to start listening to Christian music." Mm-hmm. And so I was trying, and I was kind of a music snob, as you were. I know, we are music snobs. Maybe like if it's good music, we want to listen to it, and
Right.
if it's not good music, nah. And frankly, I remember going to a Michael W. Smith concert with Kim when we were dating, and I was like, okay, I was really trying to. There were like Jars of Clay. There were a couple of Michael W. Smith songs that I really liked, but I felt like I was like, it wasn't really my genre. I was like coming along from classic rock or 90s country or I don't even know what I was listening to at the time. But anyway, I was trying to listen to Christian music, and I knew I needed to listen to Christian music. But being a music snob, I was struggling.
Right.
Plus, the one contemporary Christian radio station that you could get in Columbus at the time was sketchy. Like it was, it would come in or out, and you might have a good signal, you might not have a good signal.
Yes.
Which is why the truth was so important at the time when it was birthed. But anyway, a long story to say, when I heard, and this might have been the first Third Day song I ever heard, but when I heard Third Day, I was like, oh my gosh, there really is good contemporary Christian music
Yes.
out there.
Yes.
I still feel that way about Third Day. And
Yeah.
I had every CD that they ever put out. And as they came along at the time, this would have been like late 90s, I guess. Their music was just getting better and better and better. And then, don't you know, I've always loved you. I was talking about jogging to Nicole Nordeman earlier. I was jogging the Third Day. And I probably hit a pothole, and my Walkman CD would probably skip.
Right.
Well, had it on my belt, that gigantic CD
Yes.
Walkman. But I feel like I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Third Day. I feel like maybe Caedmon's Call at the time, opened the door to me to realize there's awesome music out there that glorifies the Lord. I mean, and music, and I'm sorry if I've offended anybody by the music I don't like, but by having been this, snob in my own mind of what kind of, I was very specific about what kind of music I thought was good and not good. They fit whatever I was looking for as
Yeah.
far as great music. And I do have a testimony about I've Always Loved You, which I was able to share a couple of weeks ago, that at the time I was having to have some biopsies, and I was just like not knowing how something was going to go, and had like several doctor's appointments, and I mean, this would have been like 5 years ago. So still, Don't You Know I've Always Loved You was an old song then, but every time I was on the way to a doctor's appointment, Don't You Know I've Always Loved You would play. And the Lord knew that was maybe that was like my all-time favorite Christian song. I don't know, but I just felt like it was a little love note from the Lord, like, I got you, Nancy. Don't you know I've always loved you? And so the last time I went to the doctor, I was literally sitting in the parking lot listening to The Truth and it play, and you didn't know I was going through this. It wasn't like you were like, I had not loaded this. You had not loaded this. This was just like, random music selection. So I'm sitting in the parking lot listening to these words. And then I go into the doctor, and he starts to tell me of how this thing has just disappeared. And he goes, I don't know how to explain this. When he said that to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was the song that I had just heard that says, I don't know how to explain this, but I know that words will hardly do. Miracles and signs and wonders aren't enough for me to prove to you. Don't you know I've always loved you? And I know we don't always get the miracle. We didn't get that with my dad. But I did get a little miracle at that time in my life. And it was just, I was just like, oh my gosh, Lord. It was just one of those times where, when you feel like the Lord is just like, I got you.
Question.
There's just no question. I
Yeah.
got you, Lord.
Grateful for those moments.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I do have a few more. Before we get to the top of the hour, I'll play a few more of your favorites. And right now, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back on The Truth. That was Carl Carty and Where the Gold Begins on 107.7 The Truth. Before that, I'll Fly Away, a couple of great songs that were some of Nancy's favorites.
Thank you for playing my favorites.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. Of course, some of your favorites are some of my favorites. So.
Yeah, well, I know, probably easy for you. And my husband, who's with me in the studio today for some moral support, some of my favorites are some of his favorites, but not necessarily all of them, but we know which ones. He'll call me, since you've been playing my favorites a lot lately. He'll call me like, y'all are jamming on The Truth. And I'm like, well, did you really listen to what we were saying? That we were playing some of our favorite songs? And he was like, oh, okay, well, I liked it. Yeah, but so Where the Gold Begins, I was saying this earlier this hour. I gave you a list of, 100 of my favorite songs. Anybody who's listened to me on the air in the last 12 and a half years has known I got a lot of favorites. You tease me about that. And so I handed you about 100 of my favorite songs.
Yes.
And then since then I've been like, oh yeah, and then here's another one, and here's another one. And but at some point enough had to be enough. But since the passing of my dad on Tuesday, as I've considered some of these favorite songs, you know what? A lot of them are about heaven. Mm-hmm. And that one was about heaven. Like,
yes.
I really like Carl Carty. You introduced me to Carl Carty. He's probably not an artist you're going to hear on another contemporary Christian radio station, because he might still be putting out good music, but it seems like he's shifted more into like leading worship and or songwriting and
mentoring.
Mentoring others and helping others come along. So, granted, a lot of my favorites are old, and that was the old one. But another one of my favorites is Rain on a Tin Roof. And that one is also about heaven. And we had a big, heavy rain, not last night, but night before. And I honestly, I haven't been sleeping very well. And I do not have a tin roof on my house, but when it was raining, that song was going through my mind. I wish happiness on you like rain on a tin roof. And when you really dig in and listen to the lyrics of that one, it's like, blessing offers picture of heaven, and he happens to be visually impaired, so that heaven to him is like what he hears.
More auditory,
yeah. And anyway, but that was one of my favorite songs, and so as I'm considering what some of my favorites, especially in light of my dad's passing, it's just interesting that, not interesting and not even coincidental, but sweet that as I've been able to listen and reflect, a lot of these songs are about heaven.
Yeah, amen. Well, our hope is heaven.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Nancy, I tried to pick a couple of songs that would be reflective of what you might want to say to your friends who've listened all through the years.
Yeah, and our verse of the day, which we haven't gotten to today, is about friendship. And I know it's Valentine's Day, but a lot of people are doing Galentines nowadays and celebrating friendships.
Palentines, I heard
Palentines,
recently.
So and I mean, in the sense of you're celebrating, your friends.
Yeah.
And our verse of the day is a friend loves at all times. So yeah.
Well, here's the scripture of the day. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity.
And I would say sister. I think I have a lot of sisters that might be tuning in right now. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
That was Andrew Gold bringing us into the new hour. Thank you for being a friend. I don't think we've ever played that one on the radio before, but
And that's from the Golden Girls. Is this like some sort of nod to my new career
It
about
is
being a
not.
grandma?
it is not.
I don't know. I feel like there's a little subliminal message going on there,
Well,
Brian.
I'm older than you are, so if it is, then I'm in the same boat.
Well,
but-
I did see a funny meme recently about grandmas, like, I'm officially older than all those ladies on the Golden Girls. I personally am not, but the person that was posting this, and of course they looked great and Botoxed and
Yeah.
dyed hair like I have, and showing all those old ladies on the Golden Girls,
Yeah.
that were in their early 60s at the time. And anyway, it was just funny that old age is changing. I'm going to
Yeah, I guess
embrace
so.
it. I'm going to embrace
There you go.
this new chapter of
Well,
being a grandma.
I didn't mean anything about
Okay.
the Golden Girls thing.
I'm going to take it as you meant it.
But I just, I think about one of the best pieces of advice I got, and I know I shared with you when you started, try to speak as though your best friend's sitting across from you
Yeah.
on the radio. And I know that you have considered those people who are listening and tuned in all these years as your friends. And we appreciate them just like we appreciate you. Before we say goodbye, before we, I guess this will be your
See you later.
last day, official day,
Yeah.
I just want you to know how great a job you've done and how, sorry if I get a little choked up, how much I appreciate you.
Well, I have always known that about you, Brian. You're a very generous boss and friend, and you have extended a lot of grace to me and Barbara over the years, because you have allowed us to do radio as we have been able to do radio, being busy moms and now grandmoms. And I know you have it. You are a grace-filled person, so it comes naturally to you. But Barbara and I definitely feel like we know we're special to you, and that's part of the reason why you give us a little extra margin to be who we need to be and do this. So thank you for just being my friend and being the best boss I ever had. Although if I have other bosses listening, y'all are awesome too. But thank you, Brian. And
Well, I may be the last one you ever have. So, if
well,
you're
no,
retiring-
I got a little 3-month-old boss right now.
you're answering to him.
Yes, I'm definitely answering to him. But I do want to say I referenced the last hour how I was very dismissive. You 13 years ago asked me to consider being a DJ on The Truth, and I totally was like, okay, yeah, I'll think about that. I mean, I really was not really thinking about it, but I appreciate that you saw something in me that you knew I could do this, and I did not think that about myself. And then I won't rehash the story of how I actually ended up saying yes to doing the DJ thing, but it was just because the Lord told me to do this, basically. It was so clear. The Lord gave me a message. This was what I was supposed to do. And so I kind of had to come back to you kind of sheepishly and be like, okay, you know what? I am going to do this. And but I was so fearful. I was so fearful. And I was listening and reading a lot of books. And fear is something I still struggle with. But at the time, I was so fearful about doing this, And you had just always encouraged me and shown me the ropes. And, I wasn't even here a year when I took the whole station down. I pushed the wrong button and, the whole city, anybody that was listening in their cars were like, what just happened? And usually stuff like that. It was like a tower problem or a weather problem. But no, I have pushed the one button that you're not supposed to push to turn off all the music. So I've made all the mistakes, and yet you've always believed in me and believed in me from the beginning, even when I didn't think I could do it. And so thank you for that.
Well, our friendship goes back a long ways, and you've helped me grow. And I know that
That's a very kind way of saying
You
it,
have.
but I know
You have.
you've helped me
I
grow as
remember
well. But
our spouses kind of rolling their eyes at us when we were arguing over a Mexican dinner meal one time, and we were talking about the word, and I think Kim and Ruthie were ready to go.
Yes,
We were-
yes. Kim and Ruthie. Well, Brian, you're very nice. People who hear me on the air think I'm nice, but anybody who knows me knows that y'all are a lot nicer than I am, and so I know working with me is not always easy. So I know I've helped you grow. It's like in those kind of sandpaper friendships when I am, because we're going to continue to be friends. That I'm one of those people that, and not just to you, I can rub people the wrong way, and it's a growth opportunity to to have to manage Nancy.
Well-
I was trying to tell you earlier off the air, just do this, Brian, and just do that, and you were like, Nancy, I got it.
well, we'll exist without you, but
I know you will.
we appreciate you.
I
very
feel
much.
very appreciated. Thank you.
And I'm gonna play this song. I know we're both James Taylor fans.
Yes, we are.
From way back, and I'll play this one for you as we say goodbye. It's "You've Got a Friend." God bless you.
Thank you, Brian.